Betrayed. Broken, reborn. This is Novel Binge.
They tried to make me their scapegoat, so I brought their secrets to court. My stepbrother thought one drunken hit and run could be buried with money, threats, and a false confession, until my uncle left me the hard drive that exposed them all. When my father pushed the confession statement across the table, the lights in the hospital corridor flickered once. A black ballpoint pen lay against the edge of the paper. He did not look me in the eye. He only stared at the cut on the back of my hand, the one I had gotten from a cardboard box at the warehouse, and said, "Chen Yan, just sign it." I looked down. The statement said that in the early hours of the 17th of June, I had taken a vehicle registered under Quisheng Logistics in Jiangzhou, driven under the influence, hit a pedestrian at the South Ring intersection, and fled the scene. Every word was clean and precise, as if it had been prepared long before I ever saw it. I looked up at him. "You want me to confess?" My father, Chen Jianhua, frowned as though I had said something unreasonable. "I'm not asking you to confess," he said. "I'm asking you to take responsibility for the family this once." I gave a small laugh. "I wasn't the one who hit anyone." "I know." He said it too quickly. So quickly that the last bit of hope I had left for him fell apart right there in the corridor. He knew. He had known from the beginning. At the end of the hall, my stepmother, Zhao Meilin, stood with her arms crossed. She wore a pale suit and had her hair pinned up neatly, as if she had come to negotiate a business deal, not cover up a crime that might cost a man his life. Zhou Jihao leaned against the wall with his head down, scrolling through his phone. He was the one my father called your younger brother. He was also the real driver in the accident. He lifted his head, glanced at me, then lowered it again and kept swiping at his screen. Zhao Meilin walked over and placed a bank card on top of the statement. 300,000 yuan, she said. "We'll also cover your uncle's follow-up treatment. After you come out, Quisheng will arrange a warehouse supervisor position for you. Full benefits, a proper salary. We won't shortchange you." She spoke slowly, as if afraid I was too stupid to understand. I asked, "What about the man who was hit?" Zhao Meilin's expression cooled. "We'll handle the compensation. That isn't your concern. He's still in the ICU. That is exactly why this has to be resolved quickly." She looked at me. "Chen Yan, you're an adult now. You need to understand priorities. Jia Hao just secured a letter of intent from investors, and Quisheng is preparing to go public. We cannot have criminal issues at a time like this. My father took over. Your brother can't get into trouble. He just came back, and he has a long future ahead of him." I stared at him. "And me?" My father's lips twitched. Zhao Meilin answered for him. "You're different. You already work odd jobs in a warehouse. You don't have a real career to lose. Spend a few years inside, come out with the money, and start over. It may not be such a bad thing for you." Zhou Jihao finally smiled. He shoved his phone into his pocket and said lazily, "Come on, bro. Don't make it so serious. Aren't you always short on cash? 300,000 isn't nothing. Besides, my mom already said she'd pay for your uncle's treatment. His leg is going to cost a lot, right?" My fingers slowly tightened. The pen rolled toward the edge of the table, almost falling. My father reached out and pressed it down. "Xiaoyan," he called me by my childhood name. It had been years since he last did that. After my mother died, he remarried and sent me to live with my uncle. After that, he only visited during holidays, and even then, he called me Chen Yan. Now he was calling me Xiaoyan again, because he wanted me to go to prison for the son he kept. "Dad knows he has let you down," he said, "but there really is no other way this time. If Jiahao goes in, his whole life is finished. You've suffered since you were young. You can endure this." I looked at his face. There were fine lines at the corners of his eyes. His cuffs were spotless. On his wrist was a watch from a brand I could not even name. I suddenly remembered him visiting me at my uncle's security booth when I was little. He had brought me a bag of oranges. Half of them were rotten. My uncle picked out the bad ones in front of him and said, "Next time, don't dump things you don't want on the kid." My father had looked so embarrassed that day. After that, he came even less. Now he was trying to dump a crime on me, and he still thought I should accept it. I pushed the statement back. "I'm not signing." The corridor went silent. Zhou Jihao scoffed. Zhao Meilin's face turned icy. My father did not lose his temper. He only rubbed his brow, looking tired. "Chen Yan," he said, "don't push me." I looked at him. "I should be the one saying that to you." He did not answer. That night, when I left the hospital, Jiangzhou had just been washed by rain. Dirty puddles gathered by the roadside, and taxi after taxi passed without stopping. I stood at the hospital entrance, while my phone vibrated non-stop. It was my uncle. I answered. His rough voice came through at once. "Where are you? Didn't you say you were going to the hospital to ask about the accident? Why aren't you back?" "Uncle, if you have something to say, say it." I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. He went quiet for 2 seconds. Then he asked, "Did Chen Jianhua come to you?" I hummed in response. What did they want? "They want me to take the blame for Zhou Jihao." The other end of the line went dead silent. After a long moment, my uncle cursed. "Damn it. I thought he would keep cursing." but he only breathed heavily and said, "Come home, don't wander around outside." "I'm fine." His voice suddenly rose. "You're not fine at all. Get back here." By the time I returned to the old city, it was almost 2 in the morning. The security booth at the entrance of the resettlement neighborhood still had its lights on. My uncle, Lin Shoucheng, sat inside with an old wool blanket over his legs and a chipped stainless steel cup beside him. When he was young, he had worked as a signalman. Later, something happened and his left leg was injured. Since then he had walked with a limp. He had a terrible temper, and nothing he said ever sounded pleasant. After my mother died, my father sent me to stay with him, saying it would only be for a while. That while lasted more than 10 years. My uncle did not ask whether I had cried. He did not ask if I was scared. He threw a pack of cigarettes onto the table and snapped, "If he told you to die, would you go do that too?" I stood in the doorway, rain dripping from my clothes. "I didn't sign." "Good thing you didn't." He dragged his bad leg up, rummaged through the cabinet, and pulled out an old plastic bag filled with medicinal liquor, gauze, and a few crumpled receipts. "Your father, I saw through him years ago. On the surface, he always says he has no choice. In his heart, he keeps the clearest accounts of all. Back then, your mother, she was." He stopped abruptly. I looked at him. "What about my mother?" He shoved the plastic bag back into the cabinet, his voice stiff. "Nothing." Then he turned and began checking surveillance footage. The security booth had an old computer that took ages to start. The screen was divided into a dozen small windows. The main gap, the bike shed, the convenience store entrance, the back alley. Each frame was washed in dull gray light. I used to do homework beside those screens. My uncle had a habit. Whenever someone in the neighborhood lost a scooter, got into a fight, or had a car scraped in the middle of the night, he would pull up the footage from the key times. I used to think he was being obsessive. He would say, "With surveillance footage, even one missing second can cost a life." Back then, I did not understand. I only thought he was a neighborhood security guard who acted like he was solving criminal cases. But that night, after staring at the screen for a long while, he suddenly asked, "Was the car Zhou Jihao drove that black SUV from Kosheng?" I nodded. "The one with the plate ending in 6A9. "I think so." He slammed the mouse down. "That car came into your father's company parking lot last night, and it also drove out through the old road near our neighborhood." I froze. "You saw it?" "I didn't see anything." He pointed at the screen. "The camera outside the estate has been broken for half a month, but the sound of the car was different. That piece of junk has a loud exhaust. You can hear it from far away at night." I said nothing. My uncle grabbed his coat. "Let's go." "Where?" "To look for surveillance." "It's too late." He turned and glared at me. "You think it's too late now? Wait until you're sitting in prison. Then you'll understand what too late means." That night, he dragged his lame leg and took me around the South Ring Road area. The rain-washed pavement reflected the streetlights. Most shops were already closed. My uncle knew many people. Old Tang the locksmith, Sister Cow who sold breakfast, Old Song who guarded the parking lot, a young man who repaired electric bikes in the alley behind the bar. Some were willing to help, some were impatient. My uncle passed out cigarettes, forced smiles, cursed, pleaded, and haggled. I followed behind him and watched his bad leg grow stiffer with every step. Just after 4 in the morning, we found that black SUV in a small surveillance camera behind a bar. The footage was blurry. The car was parked by the back door. A man staggered out of the bar with a woman beside him. The man opened the driver's door and got in. The woman took the passenger seat. My uncle paused the footage and narrowed his eyes. "That build doesn't look like you." My throat tightened. "Can you prove it was Zhou Jihao?" "No." He was blunt. "His face isn't clear and the license plate is blurry. This can only prove someone drove that car away at that time. Then, what's the use?" He copied the video onto an old hard drive. Piece by piece. A case isn't overturned by one sentence. It's built by connecting one fragment to the next. He shoved the hard drive into his bag and glanced at me. "Remember this. Without evidence, telling the truth is useless." The next morning, the traffic police notified me to cooperate with the investigation. The officer in charge was named Shen Mingquan. He was in his 30s, a man of few words, and his brows stayed furrowed as he flipped through the documents. He asked, "Where were you between midnight and 3 in the morning on the 17th of June?" "At the old neighborhood. I bought medicine for my uncle and covered his shift." "Any witnesses?" "The convenience store owner may have seen me." "What about surveillance?" I paused. Convenience store footage usually only stayed for a few days. Shen Mingquan slid a photo across the table. It showed the steering wheel of the black SUV. "Your fingerprints are on the car." I stared at the photo. "I helped my father move things before. I've touched that car." "You were at the Qixing Logistics parking lot before the incident." "My father told me to pick up some old belongings." Shen Mingquan pushed over another record. "The repair shop owner, Ma Qing, said that around 1 in the morning, you drove the car to his shop, claimed you had hit something, and asked him to repair it first." I lifted my head sharply. "I didn't." He looked at me. "Chen Yan, I'm not saying you're definitely guilty, but right now, the evidence does not look good for you. If you have evidence, submit it. Without evidence, denying it won't help." That sounded exactly like what my uncle had said. Without evidence, the truth was useless. When I came out of the traffic police station, my father was waiting by the entrance. He had changed to another car. The air conditioner was running inside, and the window was lowered only halfway. Xiaoyan, get in. I did not move. He said, things have already reached this point. If you keep resisting, you'll only make this uglier for yourself. How did my fingerprints get there? He said, nothing. Why was my old coat in the car? That coat was from 2 winters ago. The cuffs were frayed. The week before, my father had suddenly called me to his company, saying he had found some of my mother's old things and wanted me to pick them up. I went, but there was nothing. He said he had remembered wrong, then asked me to help move 2 boxes from the trunk of his car. That day, I touched the car. I also left my jacket beside it. Later, the jacket disappeared. I thought I had left it at the warehouse. It turned out I had not. My father gripped the steering wheel, veins standing out on the back of his hand. Chen Yan, stop asking. I looked at him. You were setting me up from the start. He finally turned toward me. Irritation flickered in his eyes. If you had cooperated, would it have come to this? I laughed. So this is still my fault. His lips pressed into a hard line. Xiaoyan, I never wanted to hurt you. You already have. For once, he had nothing to say. The back door opened. Zhao Meilin sat inside, her face cold as paper. Chen Yan, know your place. You still have a chance to take the money. Once the case is finalized, you won't even have the right to negotiate. I asked, where is Zhou Jiahao? Zhao Meilin narrowed her eyes. Jiahao is resting at home. He hit someone, and he still gets to rest. She laughed softly. You'd better not speak so absolutely. The evidence points to who it points to. I don't need to remind you. I turned to leave. Behind me, my father called my name. Chen Yan. I stopped. He said in a low voice, your uncle isn't in good health. He can't handle strain. Don't drag him into this. At that moment, I understood. They already knew my uncle was looking for surveillance footage. When I returned to the neighborhood, my uncle was not in the security booth. His phone could not be reached. I asked Du Xiaoman, the owner of the convenience store. She said he had gone out early that morning with his old canvas bag. His leg is like that, and you didn't stop him. Du Xiaoman sighed. Going against your father's side won't do you any good. I did not have the heart to answer her. It was not until 10 that night that the hospital called. Are you a family member of Lin Xiaocheng? The patient is in the emergency room. By the time I arrived, my uncle was already being resuscitated. His head was covered in blood. His left leg was swollen beyond recognition. His clothes were smeared with mud. The nurse asked me to sign the paperwork. My hands shook so badly that my name came out crooked. Not long after, my father arrived too. He glanced at the emergency room light, then looked at me. How did this happen? I rushed forward and grabbed his collar. Was it you? His expression changed. Chen Yan, have you lost your mind? Zhao Meilin followed behind him, frowning as she took half a step back. Lin Xiaocheng was the one running around in the middle of the night, she said. If something happened to him, who is to blame? Where is his bag? I asked the nurse. She said he had no bag when he was brought in, only a set of keys and an old senior phone with a cracked screen. My uncle's bag was gone. The hard drive was inside it. I stood outside the emergency room, my mind buzzing. Zhao Meilin handed me a payment slip. Pay 18,000 first. I did not take it. She pulled another card from her bag. As long as you sign, Lin Xiaocheng can be transferred to the best orthopedic ward immediately. I'll cover the follow-up expenses. My father said quietly, look at what happened to your uncle. What is the point of making a scene anymore? I looked up at him. The red light above the emergency room reflected on his face. There was no concern in his eyes, only pressure. My whole body went cold. He was beaten, I said, and your first words are still asking me to sign. My father was silent for a moment. Xiaoyan, you need to look forward. Forward, for whose sake? Zhou Jiahao's future. Zhao Meilin grew impatient. Chen Yan, don't be ungrateful. If Lin Xiaocheng's leg is crippled, there will be long-term rehabilitation, nursing care, medical expenses. You are a warehouse sorter. What can you possibly afford? I'm calling the police. She laughed. Go ahead. Do you have evidence of who attacked him? I could not answer, because I did not. Again, evidence. That night, I sat outside the emergency room and did not sleep. The next morning, my uncle woke. His lips were cracked and dry. His eyes opened only a slit. I leaned closer. Uncle. His voice scraped out like sandpaper. Bag. My eyes turned hot. It's gone. He closed his eyes. I thought he would scold me. Instead, he said in a very low voice, don't sign. I could not speak. If you sign, he gasped twice. I won't acknowledge you. I lowered my head and held his hand. His hand was rough, with dust still lodged in the creases of his fingernails. In all his life, he had never given me anything fancy. No brand name shoes, no new phone, no decent room. But from the day my father abandoned me, my uncle had scraped together meal after meal and raised me until now. Now he lay on a hospital bed, unable to speak steadily, and he was still worried that I would bow my head. I won't sign, I said. His eyelids twitched, as if he was relieved. But not completely. Things did not stop just because I refused. Soon, the family group chat exploded. My father and Zhao Meilin's version of the story had spread everywhere. They said I had borrowed the family car, hit someone, and then tried to blackmail my father. They claimed my uncle had caused a scene just to force Chen Jianhua to pay up. They said I had always been strange, distant from the family, and now that I was grown, I had turned into an ungrateful parasite. My aunt called me. The first thing she said was, "Chen Yan, your father hasn't had it easy all these years, don't take things too far. Isn't sending me to prison far enough?" She paused. "Didn't your father offer money? 300,000 is not a small amount. Your brother has a future, what do you have? You never had a proper job anyway. Take this for the family, and everyone will remember your kindness." I hung up. Not long after, another commotion broke out in the hospital corridor. A man in a courier station uniform rushed over and shoved me against the wall. "So you're Chen Yan?" My back hit the wall with a sharp pain. His eyes were bloodshot, and the veins on his hands stood out. "My father is in there with tubes all over him, and you still have the nerve to hang around here." I recognized him. Liang Yuan, the son of the man who had been hit. I said, "I wasn't the one who hit him." He punched the wall inches from my face. "Wasn't you? The repair shop owner said it was you. Your fingerprints were on the car. Your whole family says it was you, and you expect me to believe it wasn't." People in the corridor turned to stare. "Is that the one who fled after hitting someone? I heard he refuses to pay compensation too. Wasn't his uncle beaten after causing trouble?" I stood there, and every explanation I could give had already become useless. Liang Yuan grabbed my collar. "Let me tell you, if my dad doesn't wake up, I'll make sure you pay with your life." His hatred was real. I could not even blame him. If it had been me, I would have hated someone too. The people who deserved that hatred were hiding in a villa, in a company, behind their mother and stepfather, and I, the scapegoat pushed to the front, stood in the hospital corridor and took everyone's eyes. That afternoon, my uncle's condition became unstable. The doctor said his left leg had both old and new injuries, and his head injury needed further observation. There might be surgery later. Medical bills came one after another. My bank account had just over 2,000 yuan. I still owed part of my night school tuition. If I took more than 3 days off from the warehouse, my wages would be docked. I sat outside the payment window with my phone in my hand, and almost called my father. I had already entered the number. In the end, I deleted it. I could not beg him. I was afraid that the moment I opened my mouth, he would hand me that pen again. In the evening, Du Xiaoman brought me 2 steamed buns. She sat beside me on the bench outside the ward, and lowered her voice. "Chen Yan, your uncle has a foul mouth, but his heart isn't bad. He came to my shop yesterday." I looked up sharply. When, around 8 in the evening, he was sweating all over and asked if I wanted to switch out the surveillance memory card. I said no, and he sat down for a while. "What did he say?" Du Xiaoman hesitated. "He said, if you couldn't hold on, I should." She stopped. "Should what?" She glanced at the ward, then at the corridor. "Forget it. It isn't time yet." I grew anxious. "Aunt, my uncle is already like this. When will it be time?" She sighed. "It isn't that I don't want to tell you," he warned me. "Chen Yan, some things once brought to light may not save you. They may get you killed." I understood her fear. If Zhao Meilin could have someone beat my uncle, she could do the same to a convenience store owner. I did not press her, but her words stayed in my mind like a thorn. My uncle had left something behind. But what was it? On the 3rd day, I took leave and went to the road where the accident happened. I walked the route from the bar's back door to South Ring Road, then to Qixing Logistics parking lot, and finally to Ma Qing's repair shop. The roads looked different in daylight than they did after midnight. Traffic was heavy. People were everywhere. Horns blared without stopping. I took out my notebook and wrote down every time point I knew. 12:20 a.m. I bought medicine for my uncle at the convenience store near our neighborhood. 12:45 a.m. The black SUV left from the bar's back door. 1 a.m. Ma Qing claimed. I drove the car to his repair shop. 1:20 a.m. I returned to the security booth, and my uncle asked me to open the back gate for a resident. The timing did not add up. If I had been at Ma Qing's shop at 1, I could not have been back in the old neighborhood at 1:20. The two places were on opposite sides of the city. Even with empty roads, it would take at least 40 minutes. I rushed back to the convenience store. Du Xiaoman was arranging goods on the shelves. "Aunt Du," I asked, at 1:20 a.m. on the 17th, "did I buy medicine from your shop?" She froze. "Yes, your uncle had stomach pain. You bought stomach medicine and pain relief patches. Do you still have the receipt?" She searched for a while, then pulled out a receipt stub. The thermal paper had faded a little, but the time could still be seen. The 17th of June, 1:18. I held the receipt, my palms damp with sweat. Du Xiaoman opened the computer. The surveillance may not have been overwritten yet. Let me check. But when she opened the software, her expression changed. The footage from that early morning was gone. Only footage, after 3 remained. "It was still there yesterday," she murmured. My heart sank. Someone had beaten us to it. I took the receipt and went to Shen Mingquan. After reading it, his brows furrowed even deeper. "This can prove a purchase was made at the convenience store at 1:18, but it only proves someone used this order at that time. Surveillance, or a witness would be stronger. The owner can testify. Whether the witness is willing to appear in court is another matter." I gritted my teeth. Ma Qing said, "I arrived at the repair shop at 1. He lied. Shen Mingquan looked at me. I'll verify it. Don't act alone recently. If you find new evidence, submit it immediately. When I walked out of the traffic police station, I stood by the road and realized for the first time that I could not keep stumbling forward blindly. I needed a lawyer. The legal aid center was on the 3rd floor of an old office building. The lawyer who received me was named Zhang Jixia. She wore a white blouse, and her hair was tied neatly behind her head. After I finished telling her everything, she did not urge me to calm down like other people did. She did not offer empty comfort. She only asked, "Where is the original surveillance footage?" "It's gone." "Is the witness willing to testify?" "I'm not sure." "Do you have evidence that the other side colluded, destroyed evidence, or threatened witnesses?" I was silent. Jiang Jixia put down her pen. "Chen Yan, right now, you have many doubts, but doubts are not evidence." Her words were cold, so cold that I felt ashamed sitting there, but I really didn't hit anyone. "It doesn't matter whether I believe you," she said. "The court will not declare you innocent because you feel wrong. You need a timeline, sources of evidence, witness testimony, and original footage." I stared at the table. She added, "But you did one thing right." I looked up. "You didn't sign." That day, Zhang Jixia accompanied me to submit supplementary clues. The convenience store receipt, Du Xiaoman's possible testimony, the missing Quishang parking lot footage, a request to retrieve road surveillance near the repair shop. As she filled out the paperwork, she said, "Remember this, the more desperate they are to make you confess, the shakier their evidence probably is. What if they destroy all the evidence?" She glanced at me, then proved they destroyed it. I did not fully understand, but at least from that day on I knew which direction to move in. Zhao Meilin's counterattack came quickly. 2 days later, an internal statement from Qixing Logistics leaked online. It said the accident vehicle had been privately borrowed by a certain individual surnamed Chen, and that after the incident, Chen's family repeatedly demanded excessive compensation and tried to blackmail the company with falsified surveillance footage. It did not mention my full name, but everyone who knew me knew exactly who Chen was. An audio recording began circulating in the family group chat. In it, my voice said, "It isn't enough, definitely not enough. If we don't get money soon, we won't be able to hold on much longer." Everything after that was cut off. The full sentence had come from a call I made to the warehouse supervisor at the hospital asking to borrow money for my uncle's surgery deposit. They removed all the context. They turned me into someone who only wanted money. Ma Qing also changed his story. He said I had approached him and asked him to alter his testimony, promising to split the money afterward. After seeing those things, Liang Yuan came to see me again. This time, he did not hit me. He only stood downstairs from the hospital with bloodshot eyes. "Chen Yan, I'm asking you one last time. Were you driving that car?" "No." "Then why do you need money?" "To save my uncle's life." He let out a cold laugh. "Your family is really something. You hit my father, then turn around and use your own uncle to play the victim." I wanted to explain, but the words stuck in my throat. He did not need an explanation right now. He needed a culprit. Everyone had pushed me in front of him. That night, I returned to the security booth, hoping to find another backup my uncle might have left. There were many old hard drives in the cabinet. Each had a date label. There were cases of stolen batteries, neighbor disputes, water leaks in the stairwell. My fingers grew black from searching through them. At last, I found one labeled 617 South Ring Road. My heart began to pound. But just as I stepped out of the security booth, someone rushed at me from behind. Before I could turn, a heavy kick landed on my back. The hard drive flew from my hand. A man in a cap grabbed it and ran. I chased him, but another man blocked me and punched me in the stomach. Pain knocked me to my knees. By the time I managed to stand, they were gone. The next morning, the hard drive was found smashed in front of the security booth. Its casing was cracked open, and the pieces inside were scattered across the ground. A paper note had been weighed down beside it. Only one sentence was written on it. "Don't be ungrateful." I crouched on the ground and picked up the shards. They cut my fingers, but I felt nothing. Jiang Jixia rushed over. One look at the scene, and her face darkened. "Call the police, take photos, keep every fragment." My voice was hoarse. "It's no use." She crouched in front of me. "Chen Yan, what they destroyed was a hard drive, not you, but my uncle's evidence is gone." She did not answer immediately. After a long pause, she asked, "Would someone like your uncle really keep his only evidence in a bag that easy to snatch?" I froze. My uncle's face flashed through my mind. Bad-tempered, stubborn, suspicious of everything. He would curse the property management office for 3 days if the security booth Mara was broken for half a day. Would a man like that leave only one copy? I rushed to the convenience store. Du Xiaoman was giving change to a customer. When she saw me covered in dust, she was startled. "What happened to you?" I told her the hard drive had been destroyed. Her face turned pale. After the customer left, she pulled the rolling shutter halfway down and took an old biscuit tin from under the cash register. Inside the tin was an old key. "Your uncle told me to give this to you." I stared at it. "Why didn't you give it to me earlier?" Du Xiaoman's eyes reddened. "He said not to give it to you unless you truly had nowhere else to turn. He was afraid that if you got it too early, you would be targeted." A small label was attached to the key. City West Cell, Service Locker, C-19. By the time Zhang Jixia and I arrived, rain had started again. The lockers were in the basement of an old mall. Several lights were burned out, and the hallway smelled damp and stale. The door of C-19 opened. Inside was a black iron box. In the box were a hard drive, several handwritten timelines, a copy of a receipt, a blurry photo, and a note. The note was in my uncle's crooked handwriting. "Chen Yan, if you're reading this, something has probably happened to me. Don't cry. It's embarrassing. You know, the password. The day your mother left, it was raining too." My hands trembled as I held the paper. I was 7 years old the day my mother died. It rained all day in Zhangzhou. I would never forget that date. I tried it as the first password. The hard drive unlocked. There were many folders inside. The newest one was labeled 6.17. When we opened it, the first file was surveillance footage from the bar's back door. This was not the low-resolution copy we had seen at the shop. This was the original backup. The image still was not perfectly clear, but it was much sharper than before. The black SUV was parked by the back door. Zhou Jihao came out leaning against the wall. His face was flushed, and he could barely walk straight. A woman in a black dress followed beside him. He pulled open the driver's door. After a moment of hesitation, the woman got into the passenger seat. The headlights came on. The license plate was visible. Jiang A. 6A9. Jiang Jixia paused the video. "Enough." I stared at the screen, my throat tight. "Does this prove it wasn't me?" "It proves you weren't the one who drove away from the bar," she said. "That is enough to shake their accusation. But it is not enough by itself. We still need to prove who was driving at the moment of impact, who tampered with the evidence afterward, and who tried to force you to take the blame." She carefully put the hard drive away. "Chen Yan, this cannot leave our sight again." After that footage was submitted, the situation shifted for the first time. Shen Mingquan came to take another statement from me. He asked about the source of my uncle's hard drive, the storage locker, Du Xiaoman, and whether we had the original files. Zhang Jixia was present the entire time. "We will cooperate with evidence collection," she said. "But please protect both the evidence and the witnesses, according to the law." Liang Yuan saw the video too. He stopped me in the hospital stairwell, his voice much lower than before. "Is that really Zhou Jihao? You saw it yourself. The one who hit my father. I told you from the beginning. It wasn't me." He lowered his head and rubbed his face. After a long while, he said, "The Zhao family came to see me yesterday. They wanted me to sign the compensation agreement. They offered money quickly, but there was one condition. They told me not to pursue who the driver was." "Did you sign?" "No, my dad hasn't woken up. I didn't dare sign for him." He paused. "There's an unsent voice message on my dad's phone, right before the accident. It looks like he was trying to send something to my mom. He said there was a car swerving all over the road. I didn't think much of it before." My heart tightened. "Can I see it?" He nodded. From that day on, Liang Yuan's attitude changed. He still hated someone, but that hatred was no longer aimed only at me. We found Xu Man. She was the woman in the passenger seat on the bar's surveillance footage. She had been a resident singer at that bar. After the accident, she suddenly took leave and left Zhangzhou. Through a friend at the courier station, Liang Yuan found out she had shipped luggage to a neighboring city. Jiang Jixia and I rushed there, but at first, she refused to see us. Her voice shook from behind the door of the rental room. "I don't know anything. Don't come looking for me." Jiang Jixia stood outside and said, "Xu Man, if you don't speak now, someone else will speak for you later. By then, you may be treated as an accomplice." There was a long silence behind the door. At last, Xu Man opened it. She looked terrible. Her face was pale, and dark circles sat under her eyes. She said Zhou Jihao had drunk a lot that night. She had told him to call a designated driver, but he refused. He said his mother could handle it. He said there was nothing in Zhangzhou the Zhao family couldn't fix. After the car hit someone, she was terrified and told him to stop. Zhou Jihao yelled at her to shut up and kept driving. Later, the car drove into the Qixing Logistics parking lot. Chen Jianhua was waiting there. He made Zhou Jihao get out, change his coat, and then called someone to contact the repair shop. That uncle kept saying they couldn't let Jihao be ruined, Xu Man said, lowering her head. Afterward, Zhao Meilan sent someone to give me money and told me to leave Zhangzhou. If anyone asked, I was supposed to say I hadn't seen Zhou Jiahao that night. Jiang Jixia asked, "Are you willing to testify?" Xu Man's face went even paler. "I'm scared," I said. "The man who was hit is still in the hospital." She looked up at me. "My uncle was beaten too." She bit her lip, and tears rolled down her face. "If I testify, will Zhao Meilan have someone kill me?" Jiang Jixia looked at her. We will apply for protection, but you need to think clearly. Silence is not necessarily safe. They can silence you now, and later, they can make you the next person to take the blame. Schumann finally nodded. Zhao Meilin did not stop. Soon, she filed a police report, accusing me of tampering with surveillance footage, blackmail, and extortion. She also had the company's legal team request authentication of the hard drive's origin. My father came to see me too. It was downstairs at the hospital. That day my uncle had just finished his second surgery and had not woken up. My father stood under the awning, looking much older than before. When he saw me, he suddenly dropped to his knees. People nearby turned to stare. I instinctively stepped back. He looked up at me with red eyes. Xiaoyan, I'm begging you. I did not help him. His voice trembled. Jia Hao can't go to prison. Qixing can't have trouble. Your Aunt Zhao is already going crazy. She won't let me off. I looked at him, kneeling on the ground. This was probably the first time I had ever seen him kneel, and yet he was still kneeling for Zhou Jiahao's future. Not for my innocence. Let him go, he said. Take it as me begging you. As your father, I asked. When I was 8 and you sent me to my uncle's place, did you ever let me go? He froze. Mom died, and you said you would take care of me. Then Zhao Meilin said, it was inconvenient, and you sent me away. You came once during holidays, stayed less than 10 minutes, and left. You bought Zhou Jihao a car, sent him abroad, brought him into the company. What did you give me? I pointed at the hospital building. A confession, false testimony, a payment slip for my uncle's surgery. My father's lips trembled. Xiaoyan, your father really has no choice. I had heard those words too many times. I cut him off. Every time you have no choice, I'm the one who gets sacrificed. He knelt there as if the bones had been taken out of him. Chen Yan, do you really have to be this ruthless? I looked down at him. The ruthless moment wasn't today. Rainwater dripped from the awning and splattered against the ground. It was the day you pushed that confession in front of me. On the day of the hearing, my uncle was still in the hospital. He had woken up, but it was hard for him to speak. Before I left, he reached out from under the blanket and grabbed my sleeve. Don't be afraid. I gave a faint smile. With your voice like that, you're still trying to scold me? He glared at me. Make sure you have everything. I do. He then said, don't argue with your father. I thought he was softening, but his next words were, arguing is useless in court. Just throw the evidence in his face. My nose stung, and I almost failed to smile. The courtroom was quieter than I had imagined. Zhou Jihao sat on the other side in a dark coat, his hair neatly styled. Zhao Meilin's face was expressionless. My father sat behind the witness area, his head lowered. When Ma Qing took the stand, he stuck to his original story. He said that at 1 in the morning on the 17th of June, I drove the car into his repair shop. He said I looked panicked and told him I had hit something. He said I asked him to repair the damage first and not report it. Jiang Jixia asked, you are certain it was Chen Yan? Ma Qing nodded. Yes. Did you see his face clearly? Yes. At 1 in the morning? Yes. Where was the damage on the vehicle? The front left side. Jiang Jixia looked down at her file. According to the on-site inspection record, the main point of impact was on the front right. Are you sure? Ma Qing stiffened. Maybe I remembered the side wrong. Jiang Jixia did not argue further. Then Zhou Jihao was questioned. He said he had drunk that night, but he had not driven. He said someone else had driven him away. He said he had no idea why the vehicle was involved in an accident. Jiang Jixia asked, you were drunk, yet you remember you did not drive. Zhou Jihao's face turned ugly. I just know. Zhao Meilin's corporate lawyer stood and challenged the hard drive. He said the evidence had been provided privately by me, that its origin was unclear, and that editing, forgery, or splicing could not be ruled out. He said I had long been on bad terms with my father and had motive to extort him. He said I had demanded outrageous medical fees. Every sentence sounded reasonable. Every sentence tried to push me deeper into the mud. Then my father took the stand. He stood there without looking at me. The judge asked him about my relationship with the family. He said, Chen Yan has always been sensitive and doesn't communicate well with us. After his mother passed away, he always felt I owed him. Before the incident, had he been in contact with the vehicle involved? Yes. He touched that car when he came to the company. Is it possible he drove it privately? My father paused. In that 1 second, I still waited for him to say, impossible, my son would never do that. But he said, I don't know, he can be impulsive sometimes. I sat there, and my fingers slowly loosened. The last thread inside me snapped like an old cord. Jiang Jixia stood. We request to play the evidence. The first clip was the surveillance footage from the back door of the bar. The moment the image appeared on the screen, Zhou Jihao's face changed. In the video, he staggered out, leaning against the wall. Schumann followed behind him. He opened the driver's door and got in. The license plate was visible. Zhao Meilin turned sharply toward the company lawyer. His expression was just as grim. Jiang Jixia asked Zhou Jihao, you said earlier that you did not touch the car. May I ask, is the person in this video you? Zhou Jihao's lips moved. I drank too much. I don't remember. You don't remember getting into the driver's seat, but you remember you weren't driving. He said nothing. The second clip came from a surveillance camera outside a tobacco and liquor store near the South Ring intersection. A black SUV rushed into the frame from the right, hit Liang Yuan's father on his electric scooter, and sped away without stopping. When the image was enlarged, the driver's profile flashed by. It was clear enough to see it was not me. Shu Man's black dress was also visible in the passenger seat. Liang Yuan sat in the gallery, staring at the screen with red eyes. The third clip came from a backup of the Qixing Logistics parking lot. The missing 17 minutes were fully preserved on my uncle's hard drive. In the video, my father Chen Jianhua appeared in the parking lot. Zhou Jihao got out of the car, shaking so badly he could barely stand. My father steadied him, then pulled an old coat from the trunk. That coat was mine. After Zhou Jihao changed into it, my father stuffed his original coat into a black bag. The courtroom fell so silent that only the equipment's faint hum remained. My father's face turned pale. Zhang Jixia asked, "Mr. Chen Jianhua, you just said you did not know whether Zhou Jihao was driving. May I ask what you were doing in this video?" My father opened his mouth. I didn't know what had happened at the time. Jiang Jixia did not press him. She played the fourth clip. It was surveillance footage from outside Ma Qing's repair shop. The timestamp read 3:07 a.m. The black SUV drove into Ma Qing's repair shop. I was not driving. The driver had been arranged by Zhao Meilin. Jiang Jixia looked at Ma Qing. You just stated that Chen Yan drove the car to your repair shop at 1 in the morning. Why did the car not arrive until 3:07 a.m.? Sweat gathered on Ma Qing's forehead. I remembered wrong. You remembered the wrong time, the wrong position of the damage, the wrong clothes on the driver. Yet you remembered it was Chen Yan. Ma Qing fell silent. The fifth clip was an audio recording from Ma Qing's repair shop office. Zhao Meilin's voice came through the speakers. Just say Chen Yan brought the car. He's poor. Give him money and he'll take the blame. Clean up the vehicle damage records. Don't leave the originals. Ma Qing's voice trembled. President Zhao, what if this gets discovered? It won't be traced. Do as I say. For the first time, Zhao Meilin's face lost all color. The company lawyer immediately stood again, claiming the source of the recording was unclear. Jiang Jixia submitted the hard drive authentication report, the locker surveillance, Du Xiaoman's testimony, and documentation showing the original creation times of the files. She said, this hard drive contains footage copied by Lin Xiaoqing from multiple store surveillance systems on the night of the accident and the following day. The files show no signs of editing. In addition, official surveillance obtained afterward corroborates the contents. Next came the transfer records. Zhao Meilin had transferred 800,000 yuan into an account belonging to Ma Qing's relative through a company-linked account. The note said, equipment advance payment. But Ma Qing's repair shop had made no equipment purchases that month. Then came the hospital corridor recording. My father's voice was low but clear. Sign it, and I'll pay the money right now. Don't sign, and your uncle can't afford to wait. On the screen, footage showed him pushing the confession statement toward me. It was the long-angle footage my uncle had asked Du Xiaoman to copy from the convenience store camera. The image was not sharp, but it was enough to make out my father, Zhao Meilin, and me standing near the payment window. Jiang Jixia then played the full version of the so-called money demand recording. The part they had cut away was restored. My voice came through. My uncle needs surgery, but I don't have enough money. Definitely not enough. Could you lend me some first? You can deduct it from my salary next month. The air in the courtroom seemed to freeze. Liang Yuan lowered his head. His shoulders trembled slightly. I could not tell whether he was crying or holding himself back. Finally, Shu Man took the stand. She was terrified. Her hands clenched the hem of her clothes. But she still told the court what happened that night. Zhou Jihao drank. He refused a designated driver. He hit someone and fled. Chen Jianhua helped him change clothes in the parking lot. Zhao Meilin gave her money and told her to leave Jiangzhou. When she finished, Zhou Jihao finally broke down. You're lying. You told me to drive. You said it would be fine. Shu Man stepped back in fright. Jiang Jixia looked at him. Zhou Jihao, are you admitting that you were the one driving that night? Zhou Jihao's face went rigid. Zhao Meilin shut her eyes. Ma Qing sat in the witness seat as if he had collapsed. My father lowered his head and never looked at me again. At that moment, I was not as relieved as I thought I would be. I only thought of my uncle sitting in the security booth, cursing while pulling up surveillance footage. I thought of him dragging his lame leg down one rainy street after another. I thought of him lying in a hospital bed, forcing out the words, "Don't sign." Everyone thought he was just a crippled gatekeeper, but in the end, that crippled gatekeeper had held the line and saved my life. After the hearing, the case was reclassified. Zhou Jihao was dealt with according to law for drunk driving, hit and run, and related offenses. Zhao Meilin was taken in for investigation on suspicion of organizing false testimony, obstructing witnesses, and destroying evidence. Ma Qing changed his testimony in court and was held accountable afterward. Qixing Logistics listing plan was suspended. The Zhao family's dignity collapsed faster than anyone expected. My father lost his position. I heard that. Before the investigation officially expanded, Zhao Meilin tried to push all the blame onto him. The couple fought right outside the law enforcement office. It was ugly. I heard all of this from others. I did not go to see. I only went to the hospital. My uncle was sitting on the bed with his leg locked in a thick cast, arguing with a nurse. The reason was simple. The nurse would not let him sneak a cigarette. I stood at the door. The moment he saw me, he shoved the cigarette pack under his pillow. "What are you looking at?" I walked over and pulled the pack out. "The doctor said you can't smoke. With my body like this, what harm can one cigarette do? Light one, and I'll tell Aunt Du." He glared at me for a long time. In the end, he lost. I sat on the edge of the bed and told him the outcome. He said, "Got it. That's all." He snorted. "What else?" I knew he couldn't get away. I lowered my head and smiled. As I smiled, my eyes grew hot. My uncle turned his face away. Pathetic. I took the hard drive out of my bag. "There's another old folder inside." His fingers paused. I looked at him. "The password is my mother's death anniversary, right?" He was silent for a long time. Then he asked, "You looked?" "Not yet." "Don't bother," he said. "It's all old things." But I still opened it. The folder was labeled, "Rainy Day." What was inside had nothing to do with this accident. It was data from many years ago, the day my mother died. A fragment of surveillance footage from a rainy night, several handwritten timelines, several complaint receipts, a review application, and a copy of a compensation payment receipt. The signature on it was Chen Jianhua's. I stared at the paper, and my hands and feet slowly turned cold. My uncle did not look at me. He gazed out the window, his voice low. "Your mother's case had doubts too. I looked into it back then, but the footage disappeared. Witnesses changed their stories. The case files were sent back insufficient evidence." He said it calmly, but I knew it was not calmness. It was a wound that had been scarred over for too long. "Later, your father took the compensation and said the dead could not come back. He told me not to make trouble anymore. He remarried soon after." My uncle coughed. "I had no ability then, no education, no money. My leg was broken while I was running around for that case. In the end, I found nothing." He turned to me. "That's why I kept saving surveillance footage." I remembered what he had said so many times. With surveillance footage, even one missing second could cost a life. Without evidence, a living person could be buried by lies. So it had never been paranoia. He had already lost once. Lost so badly that his sister was gone. His nephew was abandoned, and he could not even get a proper explanation. That was why. This time, he had fought with everything he had to keep me from being swallowed by those three words. No evidence. My throat tightened. "Uncle," he waved his hand impatiently. "Don't look at me like that. I'm not as noble as you think." I just couldn't stand Chen Jianhua's smug face. I laughed, but tears fell instead. He scolded me at once. A grown man in his 20s, crying like this, "Aren't you ashamed?" I lowered my head and wiped my face. Being embarrassed isn't new to me. He glanced at me and finally stopped cursing. That afternoon, sunlight poured through the window and fell across his cast. For the first time in a long while, I felt as if I could sit still without waiting for something terrible to happen. A few days later, my father came to see me at the hospital. He had lost weight. There was more gray in his hair, and his suit was wrinkled. In the past, whenever he came to see me, he always stood very straight, as if he was afraid I might not notice how well off he had become. This time, he stood in the corridor holding a bag of fruit. The fruit was expensive, but when I saw that bag, I still thought of the rotten oranges from my childhood. He said, "Xiaoyan, let's talk." I led him to the stairwell. He placed the fruit on the step and clasped his hands together, as though he did not know how to begin. Dad really knows he was wrong. I stayed silent. His eyes reddened. "These past few days, I haven't been able to sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see you standing in court, looking at me. Xiaoyan, it isn't that I don't love you. It's just that I had no choice." I finished for him. His face went pale. "At the time, your father was trapped by circumstances. Your Aunt Zhao, the company Zhaohao, everything was pressing on me. I thought you had always been understanding. You had suffered before. Maybe you could. Maybe I was easier to sacrifice." His lips trembled. "Xiaoyan, don't say that." I pulled a document from my bag. It was not a legal severance of father and son. Zhang Jixia had told me that blood relations could not be cut off by one piece of paper, but contact between adults could be. The document was clear. From this day forward, I would not accept any money or compensation from Chen Jianhua. I would not participate in any debt, dispute, or settlement involving his current family. I would no longer communicate privately about anything related to this case. All further contact would go through my lawyer. I handed him a pen. His eyes fell on the paper and panic crept into them. "What does this mean?" "It means there is no need to pretend to be father and son anymore." He jerked his head up. "Chen Yan, I am your father." I nodded. "That is why I'm leaving you one last bit of dignity." His tears finally fell. "Xiaoyan, do you really have to be so ruthless?" He had asked that once before. Back then, he had knelt under the awning and begged for Zhou Jihao. Now, he stood in the stairwell and begged for himself. I looked at him, and the hatred in my heart was no longer burning. Only a cold exhaustion remained. The real wound was when I was 8 years old. and you sent me to my uncle's place, saying you would come get me in a few days. You never did. It was on my mother's death anniversary, when I waited for you in the security booth, while you went to Zhou Jiahao's parent-teacher meeting. It was when you knew I wasn't driving, and still pushed that confession in front of me. Chen Jianhua, you didn't lose me today. All color drained from his face. I placed the pen beside his hand. Sign it or don't. That's your choice, but don't come to the hospital to bother my uncle again. Then, I turned and walked out. Behind me, he called, Xiaoyan. I paused, but I did not turn around. His voice was hoarse. Will you still call me Dad from now on? The stairwell was very quiet. Outside, a nurse's cart rolled past with a faint rattling sound. I said, no, not anymore. When I returned to the ward, my uncle was leaning against the headboard soaking in the sun. Du Xiaoman sat beside him, peeling an apple. The peel had broken 3 times. My uncle complained that she was clumsy. She told him to shut up. The two of them squabbled like sparrows at the neighborhood gate. I stood at the door for a while and suddenly laughed. When my uncle saw me, he frowned. Did your father leave? Yes. Were you crying? Almost. What about you? I asked. I placed a law textbook on the desk. I wasn't crying. He clearly did not believe me, but for once, he did not expose me. That autumn, I changed jobs. Zhang Jixia recommended me for an assistant clerk position at the legal aid center. The pay was not high, but I could learn. In the evenings, I continued night school. After my uncle was discharged, I moved him into a small apartment with a balcony. He complained that it was too expensive and said I had no idea how to manage money. But every morning, he carried his old rattan chair onto the balcony and sat in the sun. The old hard drive from the security booth stayed in my drawer. The hard drive labeled 6.17 was kept as evidence, and I stored a copy at the very back. Sometimes, late at night, I remembered the courtroom. I remembered my father lowering his head, not daring to look at me. I remembered Zhao Meilin's pale, bloodless face. I remembered Zhou Jiahao's frantic outburst. But more often than that, I remembered my uncle limping through the rain with his old canvas bag in his hand. He never said he loved me. Not once. Not one kind word. But with his crippled leg, he dragged me out of the prison they had prepared for me. Later, Liang Yuan came by once. His father had woken up, but his recovery was slow. The actual compensation went through proper legal procedures. Liang Yuan stood downstairs from my apartment and handed me a carton of milk. I'm sorry about what happened before. I said, I don't need your apology. He shook his head. An apology is still necessary. I almost let the real culprit get away. I took the milk. He looked up toward the apartment. How is your uncle? Alive, but his temper is worse. Liang Yuan smiled faintly. Alive is enough. Yes, alive was enough. Many things could not be undone. My mother could not come back. The father I waited for when I was 8 would not suddenly become a good father. But my uncle was alive, and I did not go to prison for someone else. The things they thought money could erase had appeared frame by frame in court. That night, when I came home, my uncle was sitting on the balcony, holding his old radio. When he heard the door open, he asked without turning around, have you eaten? No. There are noodles in the pot. I walked into the kitchen and saw a bowl of tomato and egg noodles. The egg was burnt. The tomatoes were cut into uneven chunks. I carried the bowl to the small table and sat down. My uncle shouted from the balcony, don't be picky, eat it or leave it. I lowered my head and took a bite. Too salty. Still, I finished the entire bowl. By the time I took the last bite, rain had started falling outside again. It pattered against the iron awning on the balcony, crackling softly. My uncle suddenly said, Chen Yan, don't wait for your father anymore. I held my chopsticks and did not speak for a long time. Then I said, I stopped waiting a long time ago. He did not turn around. He only turned up the radio a little. I took the bowl to the sink. The faucet ran loudly. The glass window reflected the shadows of my uncle and me. One in the kitchen, one on the balcony, a rundown apartment, a small table, an old radio, a bowl of noodles that was much too salty. But in that moment, I was certain I was not unwanted. I never had been.